The 2008 presidential campaign, along with changes in the national organization and leadership that were foreshadowed by that 2006 convention in Portland, where the platform was ripped apart, have created the distinct possibility, in my view, that the party will become viewed merely as a quirky imitation of the Republican conservative movement in the eyes of both the media and of the public consciousness. And that is not the path to growth. As the Bar Root campaign of 2008 demonstrates. Those of you who are keeping score, that was 0.4%, right in the middle of this band of poor results that we've been having. However, that is the path, unfortunately, that is being pursued. Not by everyone on the LNC, not by all potential candidates, but it has been followed by many people in leadership positions throughout the Libertarian Party. Shortly after the debacle of the 2008 election, I confess for my sins that I give money to the Libertarian Party. I do a monthly pledge, and that entitles me to this wonderful benefit of getting something called a Liberty Pledge newsletter every month or two. I can't remember how quickly it comes out, how frequently it comes out, and there's not a lot in here of much interest. However, right after that election in November 2008, the Liberty Pledge newsletter arrived at my home with a headline saying, "Libertarian Party celebrates its birthday." And on the front was a one-page article written by the national chair at the time. And it goes on saying, it's the 37th birthday of the party, let's celebrate all the wonderful things that we've done and that we promise the American people that we keep on doing. And it was a nice thought. And what is this concern? What is listed in this article as the accomplishments of the Libertarian Party? In other words, what is it that we stand for, have stood for, stand for now, and will stand for in the future? Well, I won't keep you in suspense. It goes on and on about taxes and expenditures and debt, all economic issues. It goes on endlessly. I'm going to read to you 2 or 3 word blurbs here so you get a sense of it. We are opposed to bailouts. We want the free market. No government intervention in the market. We won't raise your taxes. Transparency in government expenditures. Cut the size of government. Free and competitive market. We won't redistribute the wealth. We'll act to try to repeal the income tax. We'll lower the government debt. No more subsidies. No impediments to free trade. Will protect your rights as a taxpayer, businessman, or consumer. We're the party of the taxpayer, the party of the businessman, and the party of principle. First of all, let me state there's nothing wrong with any of that. You're not going to find anybody who's more anti-tax than I am. I think taxation is theft. It doesn't say that in the article, but I hope that was the unstated premise of the article. So I'm not here to criticize what was said. What I'm here to criticize is what wasn't said. What part of libertarianism was left out of there? Where were the mentions of it? Remember, the time period is just a couple of years ago. I can't remember what the war du jour was on that particular date. I get confused whether we were in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, or some other country that I'm not even aware of that we were invading at that particular time, or were bombing, or were involved otherwise in what President Obama can't see are hostilities. I don't know. I really, truly can't remember. I think it's probably just Iraq and Afghanistan is my best guess. No mention of war issues in that litany of what the Libertarian Party stands for. What about individual rights? Except for the right to property, which of course is fundamental and was implicitly set forth repeatedly in the article, no reference to any other individual rights. What about the drug war? Or what Harry Brown used to famously call every time the insane war on drugs. I always liked that. He would never say the drug war, he'd say the insane war on drugs. And there was an entire argument sort of built up into that phrase. No reference to the war on drugs. a war which is now, I think the other day was the 40th anniversary. It was like a time for celebration. I don't know, celebration or mourning, but it was on the TV shows. This is the 40th anniversary of President Nixon's initiation of the war on drugs. How's that going for you? Well, not going very well for the country, but you wouldn't know it from reading this peon about the praise of the Libertarian Party. Got nothing. We're all for economic expenditures and transparency and lowering the national debt, but we're going to leave hundreds of thousands of people in prison forever because they have in their possession a substance that the government doesn't like. Apparently that's unstated, but that's implicit. What about gay rights? No mention there. What about immigration issues? No mention there. What about gun rights? No mention there. We could go on and on and on. Whatever individual rights issue you're interested in, it was not stated there. And by the way, I don't mean to pick on the national director at that time, Mr. Redpath, but he's not alone in having that kind of blind spot. There's a guy out there named Root, I believe is his name. He's written a book. Actually, I have the book here someplace. Somebody wrote it. Here it is. Okay. This book is entitled The Conscience of a Libertarian. You're probably familiar with this book. Some of you may have actually spent money and read it. I'm sorry that you spent that money. I'm sorry that I spent this money. This is a lengthy book. It's over 300 pages long. I suspect that it took Mr. Root a long time and a lot of hard work to put this together. I suspect this is probably the best statement that he can come up with of his political philosophy. I don't have any reason to think that that's not the case. You can read this book from cover to cover, and you will read a lot about taxes. Mr. Root wants lower taxes. Okay, I'm with him there. But there is nothing in here, almost literally nothing, about foreign policy, about the foreign wars that we're involved in, virtually nothing about the drug war or gay rights, nothing. In fact, what we have on those issues can be summed up in the following sentence. When it comes to personal and social issues, I believe it is up to the voters of each state to decide for themselves. End of discussion. Now, I understand that he's not the first libertarian to take that state rights view. I understand that. In fact, other prior libertarian presidential candidates have taken that view expressly. I have to say that I don't respect that view because I think it ducks the fundamental issue. It says, I'm running for president of the United States. These are important issues. I'm going to leave it to the states, and I don't care what the heck the states do. I don't care whether they strip people of their rights. I don't care whether they incarcerate people for a lifetime for having a substance in their pocket when they're arrested. I don't care if those states make it illegal for individuals to practice their sexuality in ways that are different from mine. I don't care about any of that. All I care about is it's a states' rights issue. And I'm going to end my thought process right there. But you know that, in fact, they don't end the thought process right there. They have thoughts on these issues. They just don't want to tell you what the thoughts are. It's a duck. I'm not going to address this issue, so therefore I'm going to talk about states' rights and I'm going to move on to something else. How about taxation? Let's talk about that some more. I'm going to lower your taxes. That's the process that's being undertaken there. And that's the beginning and the end of the analysis. This is not a new issue, by the way. I'm going to read you something now that goes way back. In fact, this precedes the Libertarian Party, which was formed in 1971. I'm going to read you something from 1961. 1961, to put us in historical context, Richard Nixon had just lost the national election to John Kennedy, and there were, believe it or not, first of all, there was a libertarian movement at that time. but it probably could fit inside this room for the entire country. But there were people out there who were libertarians. They were passionate, and they saw that there was a future for the libertarian movement, and they were the remnant from an earlier time, and we owe a lot to the people who kept the flame alive during the 1950s and 1960s, where it was not fashionable to be a libertarian. There's no doubt about it. And these people, some of them, thought that the future of libertarianism, they weren't even thinking about forming a third party. They were thinking we have to form it through, if we're going to have any political clout, we have to do it through either the Republicans or the Democrats. Richard Nixon looks like our best chance. He's the closest thing to a libertarian out there. Now, that gets laughs now. But in 1961, this was a problem. Because as I said, the whole movement could fit in one room. There were several tables of people who were buying that argument at that point. And other people stood up and said, no, Richard Nixon is not a libertarian. And in fact, there's something fundamentally wrong with the conservative Republican movement. And that movement was starting to grow, had not gotten to the Barry Goldwater stage yet, but it was starting to grow, and it was fueled by the National Review and William F. Buckley Jr. You all remember him. And what I'm going to read to you is from a memo from 1961, written by Murray Rothbard. The title of the memo was, "What is to be done?" And I'll echo that in a little while. But here now, this is Rothbard talking about the conservative Republicans. He calls them the right at that time. So I don't want to confuse it a little bit, but that's what he means by it, are the conservative Republicans. In 1961, he says that there's a danger out there. And he's talking about the right, the conservative movement led by National Review. He says, National Review has transformed the right from a movement which, at least roughly, believed first of all in individual liberty and its corollaries, civil liberties domestically, and peace and isolation in foreign affairs, into a movement which on the whole is opposed to individual liberty, which in fact glorifies total war and the suppression of civil liberty, as well as monarchy, imperialism, polite racism, and a unity of church and state. The right has increasingly taken on this tone and complexion. It is all the more vital for the libertarian movement to be disassociated from, rather than allied with, the bulk of the right wing. Rothbard thanks you from the great. He goes on to say, the big danger for the libertarian movement now is a swamping by a rapidly growing conservative movement that presents more of a threat to liberty than a support. The great task facing us is the rescue of the libertarian movement from this danger. I think Rothbard was right in 1961, and if he were here today, he'd say that this is still the great threat to the libertarian movement, that we're going to be swamped by the conservative, in this case, the conservative Republican movement, which is not libertarian at all in its fundamental values. It's true now than even there was in 1961. The fate that awaits the National Libertarian Party is not a pleasant one unless the trend towards conservative republicanism is reversed in the next several years. It's difficult, in my view, to foresee survival if 2012, at the 2012 convention, the Libertarian Party mimics the results of the 2006 and 2008 conventions. First of all, you're going to have a loss of interest in the present membership. There was reference this morning to membership numbers, and they were, to put it kindly, flat in an era when it should be exploding. The libertarian movement as a whole, the greater movement, is exploding. That should be, the Libertarian Party should be the recipient, in logic, should be the recipient of that explosion. And people should be flocking to the Libertarian Party and registering as libertarians, sending dues into the National Party, and it ought to be a center focal point of the libertarian movement. Instead, you have flat membership. Something is very wrong in that situation. Maybe people coming in, but people are going out. It's like people coming in that door and going out that door. This is a recurrent problem with the Libertarian Party, is the revolving door. People come in, they're attracted, they think, to the Libertarian Party, they're disappointed, and then they go out the other door and we never see them again.